If you've heard of Auth0 Actions already, you might already know that we launched the beta version last year. About half a year on, and with feedback from developers like you, we've not only added a whole lot of new features, we're ready to announce that Actions is now generally available. In this video, I'm going to describe what Actions are, and we'll run through the process of writing and testing a few of our own custom actions in the Auth0 dashboard, deploying it for use in one of the action flows, and debugging things once they're live. So make sure you've signed up for an Auth0 account at auth0.com, and let's get started. Hey everyone, my name is Ben Deckery, and I'm a developer advocate here at Auth0. I've been looking at the new features coming out for Actions, and I'm really excited to share them with you. You might have used rules already to execute custom code after your user logs in, or hooks, which offers similar functionality around certain other extensibility points. And if you have, you'll be forgiven for trying to remember which area to use for what purposes and wonder why the experience of each is so different. This is where Actions comes in. Auth0 Actions provides a unified view across secure, tenant-specific, and self-contained functions that allow you to customize the behavior of Auth0. Actions allows you to write custom code that gets executed when a specific event occurs, like after somebody logs in, changes a password, etc. From the dashboard of your tenant, you'll notice an Actions menu on the left. In this area, you'll see the Flows and Custom Actions section. We're actually going to jump into the second section first and start writing some code. To start with, let's just create a custom action that's executed when the login event is triggered. So we'll keep the login/post login trigger here, and we'll give it a name. We'll call it first action. This can really be whatever you like. We'll create that. Now you'll see that we're taken directly to the code editor, and we're presented with some boilerplate code with two functions. The first function on execute post login will be run when this action is first executed. It's passed an event, a read-only object that contains all of the inputs and context about the event that caused the action to execute, and also an API, an object that facilitates all of the outcomes that can take place. For those who have used rules and hooks, you'll notice the autocomplete and inline documentation in the editor is new too. So if we decide to do a modification on the ID token and set custom claim, then we get our inline documentation there as well. So this is just a few ways that we want to make this even easier for you. So let's just start with a simple example and log the user object. So we'll do a console log of the event user object, just like this. We can now save this as a draft, and we can test the result over here on the left-hand side. And there's a sample payload that's going to get sent in. We're just going to run the sample payload, and we'll see what comes out over here. We can now see the user object and some itemized stats down here as well, on durations of how long it took the action to complete, boot time, and then network time. So now we can go and deploy this and see how we can run this as part of an actual login. Now, even though I've clicked deploy, this code is still not going to run yet. Before that can happen, we need to define when that should happen. So if we look back here under the Actions menu, we'll go back to Flows. Here you can see the login flow that runs after user authentication, effectively taking the place of rules. Before we jump into that though, let's have a quick look at the others. So there's 5 others here. There's machine to machine. This is executed when an access token is issued via the client credentials flow. We have pre-user registration, which is run before a user is added to a database or a passwordless connection. We've got the post-user registration, which runs after a user is added to a database or a passwordless connection. We have the post-password change, which is run after a password for a database connection user is changed. And finally, send phone message. This sends a phone or SMS message as part of the custom MFA provider. So let's jump into the login flow here. Like I say, this will run after the user is logged in. We can see that here. And we can see on the right-hand side as well the first action that we've created. So we can then drag our first action over here and into the pipeline, and then just click on apply. And it's at this point now that the first action code will get run next time somebody logs in to this tenant. Rather than spinning up a demo application to test the login process, you can launch the login box from the Getting Started. I'll just open that up in a new tab. Under Getting Started at the top here, we've got the Try It Out link. So once you click on this, you might, if you've just created a new tenant, you might need to sign up for the first time inside your tenant. So this is the user for your tenant. If you've already used this tenant before and you have a user account in there, you can log in as that existing user. I already have a user in this tenant, so I'm just going to log in as this user. And once this login process is complete, we'll get the success page, which shows basic information about the user. So this is opened up in a new tab. I'm going to close this now so we can go back to the Auth0 dashboard. And if we come down here to monitoring and we jump into logs, we'll find the successful login entry right here. And if we open that up, there's a new tab now called Action Details. If I open this up, we'll see that the first action got run. And as with the testing feature, you can see the log response here, and you can also see the stats. You can see when the action got started, when it ended. Now let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's say that we want to augment the user's ID token after login, but before it's returned to our application. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to use Zen Quotes, which is an API that'll give us a random quote. Now, if you do decide to use this API too, please make sure you check out their website for their API usage limits and attribution requirements. Okay, let's create a new post-login action, and we're going to want to call this API/random, which will give us a random quote as a JSON response here. So I'm just going to copy this, and we'll come back into the login flow, and we'll head over to custom actions again. Okay, let's create a new post-login action. And this time, after we fetch the random quote, we're going to add it to the user ID's token. We'll do a console log as well, so we can see that coming through in the logs. Before we do that, though, we need to find a way to make a request to the Zen Quotes API. And for that, I'm choosing to use Axios. You could use any of the other HTTP request type modules that you're comfortable with. Now, unlike rules and hooks, which were limited to around about 2,000 modules that was managed and curated by the team here at Auth0, Actions allows you to choose from over 1 million different NPM modules, essentially anything that doesn't have any native bindings or requires any C modules to be built. So I want to pull in Axios. I'm going to go with the latest version. So I'm just going to add that in there. So this is now available to us. So the first thing we'll want to do is to require Axios so we can use it. So let's get Axios out. Like this, and then we'll make a request to Zen Quotes. So we want to store the results of this, and we'll do an await on this one. Axios.get. This is where we want to get the request from. Now, like I said, we're going to console log this first. Now the result returns a data object. And in there we can see that we've got an array of results, and the first object is what we're after, and we want the value of the key pair where the key is Q. So we're going to get data item 0 and the value of Q. And then at the same time, we also want to use that API ID token set custom claim that we saw before. And we can see with the inline documentation here, it requires a key and then the value. So the key needs to be a fully qualified URI. And the value here is going to be the same, res.data0.q. So if we hit save now, we can actually go ahead and deploy that straight away. And then what we need to do before we can test it out, remember, is to add it to the flow. So let's jump over into the login flows. And we can see here random quote has appeared on the right-hand side. We can drag it in either side of first action. Once that's done, hit apply. And now at this point, this is where the random quotes are going to take effect. So let's jump back to the getting started page, hit try it out, and we'll log in again. And now once we've logged in, we'll see the confirmation page, and we can see here now that the quote has been added in. And if we jump back over and have a look at the logs, we should see that that has appeared there as well. And you'll also notice that when we look at the action details now, that each of the outputs is separated by the action that's been run. So we got our random quote first. We can see the log here is just the quote because that's what we logged. And we've got our stats for how long this action took. And we've still got separate information about what happened in the first action. So there you have it. We've created a few custom actions, imported some NPM modules, been able to test our code before it was deployed, and place them into the login flow. As mentioned earlier, Actions lets us extend functionality around the machine-to-machine, pre-user registration, post-user registration, post-change password, and the send phone message triggers too. I'd love to hear what you're planning to use Actions for in the comments, and also if there's anything else you'd love to hear us create a video about. Don't forget to like this video if you found it useful, that'll help others find it too, and subscribe so you're one of the first to find out the new exciting features to Actions in the future. And until then, happy coding!